Hello and a very warm welcome to, and I can't believe I'm quite saying this, our final Linkability LinkedIn Live for 2024. I'll forego all the usual end of year cliches and just say we have had some fabulous guests this year. We've talked to Hannah Morgan about recruitment, Michelle J. Raymond about company pages, Henry Oliver about success in later life. And earlier in the year, we talked education marketing. We've had one on networking. And of course, one of our absolute favorite guests, Gillian Whitney, talked with us about video and LinkedIn Lives. Now, if you're looking to see some of those older versions of our LinkedIn Lives, you're very welcome to spot them in our YouTube channel, Linkability NZ, where they all sit in their own playlist. Thank you so much for joining us today. You know, we couldn't have got through the year and wouldn't have continued to do these LinkedIn Live events if it wasn't for you, our audience. We appreciate those who show up on the live side, and we are also grateful for those who watch our replays. And before we get going today and talk about changes on LinkedIn in 2024 and what they mean for 2025, please do just say hello in the comments. We love to know who's attending, and it's the only way we have of knowing. And please say where you're from. We also like to know whereabouts in the world people are tuning in from. In our comments today, we have, of course, our team members, Gillian Moore, Cher Ferguson. They will be putting in links as I talk about various aspects of LinkedIn today that you might want to refer back to later on. And we must give a special welcome to our extraordinary friend, Meryl Cass, who is the master connector. And Meryl is the person who invites people to these events all over the world. And we are so grateful that he is always here and supportive of our events. So thank you so much, Meryl, for a wonderful year of support for the Linkability team. Now, we are here today to talk about, you guessed it, changes on LinkedIn in 2024 and what they're going to mean for us in 2025. You know, I've been on LinkedIn a long time and specializing in it particularly for nearly a decade now, and I can't tell you how many changes there have been in that length of time. But, you know, I've never seen a year as changeable as 2024. There have been a lot of micro changes, more than 200 of them, but also changes at a macro level. And those are the ones we're going to focus on today, because those are the ones that I think have the potential for the most enormous change for us in 2025. Now, we've already seen the results of quite a number of them already this year. And with changes to the algorithm, it's caused a drop in reach, amongst other things. We've seen the arrival of AI. There's been the new video feed that rolled out a few months ago. And of course, there has been a change to what we all see in our feeds on LinkedIn. Now, all of this means that we need to be looking closely at what's happened during the year and see what that means for us, for our strategies for next year. Because, you know, the definition of stupidity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. And it's particularly true on LinkedIn, where there's been so much change this year. You and I both noticed it. In fact, nobody could really miss it, I don't think. We started the year earlier on with an algorithm update. You know, LinkedIn is very, very quiet and, well, silent really about its algorithm. It never announces any changes to it at all. But thankfully, we have the good help of Richard van der Blom, who this year twice has given us an algorithm report that's been very helpful in helping us determine what changes there have been and the effects of that and consequently how we can do things better. So that's had an effect on our posts, naturally enough. We will talk about that in a little minute. And also that's had an effect on engagement this year and potentially other results as well. As I say, LinkedIn notoriously silent about what those changes are, and we really need to get some help from that through Richard and the algorithm report. Now, one of the things we do at our Linkability members site, that's linkability.biz, is we have our take on the algorithm report prepared by Richard, and you're very welcome to go and have a look at that. But I need to explain that our membership site is behind a paywall. You are welcome to look at it free for 7 days and to have a look at everything, because everything that we do on our membership site is all available there for you to have a good wander around and to have a look at. So if you're wanting to take advantage of some of the things I talk about today on our site, then please do go over to our linkability.biz page on the membership page on that site and have a look, and you can see how it all works. You'll see a lot of information there about the algorithm changes this year. So the algorithm changes have caused a drop in organic reach on our posts. Nobody has been immune to this one, least of all us. And when we look at our metrics, we can see that has definitely been the case. But there have been changes to the feed too that has really impacted on what we see in the feed. And unfortunately, posts by you and I are now well down the priority list. And we've been seeing a lot of AI content too. In fact, of course, it's everywhere now, isn't it? It's hard to get away from. But we have seen a lot of that arrive on LinkedIn in various guises. More on that in a minute or two. And we have seen more competition while there's more than 1 billion members on LinkedIn now. So they say there have been a lot more creators arrive on the platform, which of course has meant more competition for you and I in the feed. And I think the final change that has caused part of this issue has been the change in what we are ourselves watching or looking at or reading. And that has had a major effect on our posts because, of course, what happens is the algorithm dictates what posts we all see. The more time we spend on posts, that's called dwell time, the more likely LinkedIn's algorithm is to send our posts out to a wider audience. Now, unfortunately, the relevance of dwell time, or its importance really, has dwindled a little this year, and it's not as important as it once was. So, for example, the document posts that used to score most highly when it comes to reach and engagement are now not doing nearly so well because LinkedIn has removed its response to that and is no longer giving those a little bit of an algorithmic nudge. Instead, those are going to video. It's been interesting to see too that post length has increased this year. The top performing posts are longer, which I fully approve of. I think that 3,000 characters is a great length to be able to explain the point that you are making. And we can now also use proper vocabulary, no more dumbing it down, and we can use language that's commensurate with our role and our rank or where we fit into our industry. And I think that's an important point too. And the algorithm is no longer really giving a nudge to COVID era topics like working from home and mental health. And so there's more of an even footing or an even playing field when it comes to posts on those kinds of topics. So the effect on engagement has not been nearly as tough as it has been on impressions. Now, I don't use impressions, which I consider to be a vanity metric, as my key form of knowing whether or not a post is doing well. I rely on engagement instead for that particular idea. And you can see from these numbers here that while the impressions are down, although they look up to you and I in terms of that number, and I'll explain in a minute. While they might look up, they are in fact well down on last year at about half the level they were last year. And that is despite the fact I've got about 5,000 more followers now than I did at this time last year. But engagement has not been so badly impacted, I'm pleased to say. This time last year, my engagement level was about 1,300% up on the year before. Now it's down to 1,000%. So yes, that's still a good increase, but it's not exactly where it was last year. But whereas my impressions last year were about 1,600% higher than the year before, you can see that is now down to about half. So some of this is based on dwell time, how much time people are spending on our posts, also how busy the network is at the time that we are posting, and also the timing. So that relates to whether your audience is online at the time that you are posting, because if you are, or if they are and they see your post, they are more likely to engage on it when they have the time to do so. Judging that is quite difficult because if your audience is international, they will be seeing it at different times of the day, of course. So that can be quite a tricky one to get right. But you can try posts at different times of the day and see how you get on. Other factors affecting this have been hashtags. LinkedIn has stopped its support of hashtags, although oddly, you'll still find them in the URL of posts if you do add them. But most people have dropped them from their posts now, as they don't seem to add much in the way of visibility. Your social selling index that is decided by LinkedIn is an important factor. There is a link in the comments to this one so that you can go and check what your own SSI score is. Anything above 70 is considered good. So the higher that your SSI is, the better you are doing, and LinkedIn breaks it down into these categories that you can see here on the screen, and it tells you where you are doing well and where your weaknesses are. That's always a good thing to know and to learn from so that you can improve. Creator mode disappeared on us this year, and that has had an impact in the sense that LinkedIn seems to be no longer favoring content creators in the way that it did, which is unfortunate. But on the plus side, reciprocity is still an important factor. So if you comment on my post, I am more likely to comment on yours. And that level of reciprocity is something that works across the board, and I think is going to become even more important in 2025. Another thing we have seen hugely in LinkedIn this year is a rise in the use of AI. We've seen it in profiles, people using it to write their profiles. If you're a premium member, you can't have failed to see it in your messaging for whatever use that is. And also we are seeing a lot of content written by AI in posts and comments. That is just the worst possible use of AI in my opinion. But the thing about AI is it's here to stay. I just don't think LinkedIn's AI is particularly good, and I'm hopeful that it will improve. I had a shot at seeing whether it had improved yesterday while I was preparing for today, and I gave it my current about section on my profile and asked it to write it with AI, and this was the result. 3 paragraphs in a and it was just did not work for me at all, and I just felt it was a real shame because it was way too short. It didn't sound like me. It wasn't in my voice. It sounded impersonal and unfriendly. It wasn't talking about me and I, and it lacked sufficient detail. So if you are thinking of using LinkedIn to help you write your profile, might I respectfully suggest that you use another form of AI, which will probably do a much better job for you. We've also seen it in messages with ridiculous messages like this one. And I can't begin to tell you how ridiculous I think this is, because if you are not very careful, what will happen is that you will start to write your own message, and this will fall below the fold. And when you send your message, because you haven't noticed it's still sitting there, this will go on the end of it. So do be careful when you see the messaging box show up and something to do with premium and AI like this, because you don't want to be sending messages that are seen as inauthentic and ones that people might be getting from a lot of people. So make them relevant, of course, to the person that you are messaging, whether that's a connection invite, a follow-up message, or just a general direct message as you go through building your relationship with someone. Posts are another place we are seeing masses of content generated by AI. And in Richard's algorithm report, he said there was something like 150% increase in last year of AI generated posts. And he gives figures for ones that are completely, as in 100% generated by AI, and how much are like about 50% generated by AI. And consequently, as you might expect, those that are only partly generated by AI, there's a lot more of those than full ones. Either way, it's very, without hard work, without extra work, without putting in more time, what you'll get with your post generated by AI is not something that sounds like you. It also may not be correct if it's using AI generated content, and it also won't be able to, at least at this point anyway, read your mind and add in your own ideas and opinions. So how you use posting is, you need to be careful with how you do this, I think, and maybe use it to generate ideas. People have a lot of success with that, but then they write the content themselves. Of course, it's also very useful for people who have disabilities, dyslexia, for example, using AI as a check to make sure the post is all correct is a very good way, I think, of using it. But the bottom line is that whatever you do, if you're using AI in your posting, the results are going to need work before you put them online. Something that most of us have seen this year is a wild increase in the number of AI-generated comments like this one. So these just stand out in the comment thread as being AI generated. You can't miss them. They're very badly done. And so my attack with these is to simply delete them. I don't want people looking at my comment thread and thinking that I allow this kind of thing or that I even condone it. So I just delete the comment entirely. Now, the person who put this up has been doing this for weeks. And right at the beginning, I messaged and said I would be deleting them if she didn't stop doing it. She continued to do it, and that's what I've been doing. And now, mercifully, she has stopped it, and those are no longer appearing in my feed. So you can take it a step further if you want. If the person is constantly doing this, and I would suggest then that you probably don't want them necessarily in your network, and the best thing to do is to unconnect from them and potentially block the writer, depending on how bad you feel that these particular comments are. So the arrival of the standalone video feed. Now, I think up front I'll say this, that the jury is still out on the impact of this for a number of reasons. One is the transparency of the metrics. The second is how hard it is to get your posts, your video posts into it, and also whether or not people are going to, in the longer term, start to comment on them and therefore improve engagement level, because it's very easy, because they're on the TikTok style, to just go scroll and not bother to either like or leave a comment on a video. So some people are getting great reach in some circumstances, and these do seem to be tied into LinkedIn news and whether they pick up your post and put it into the new feed. One of the downsides of the new feed is you do not know if your own post is in there. Somebody has to report that they have seen it for you to know. There are no independent analytics as far as LinkedIn's concerned. Your video post is a video post, whether it shows up in the new feed or whether it doesn't. And so it doesn't at this point yet seem to break them down into how people have viewed them. Some people have had enormous success with these, over 3 million views in some cases, but the downside of that is that it's not affecting positive outcomes in the sense that it's not affecting positively follower count or it's not generating business. But nonetheless, doing video is a very good idea because there's no question that video is becoming more and more important on LinkedIn. The kind of videos that are doing well are those that are short, between 1 and 2 minutes generally, and they are in portrait mode. So that's long and thin. Vertical is another way to describe it. And if you see these examples here, you can see this is the one that does the best apparently. I still do my gardening videos horizontally, simply because I can get more into a landscape video in terms of people seeing what's in my garden than I can if I do it just in this particular format. But the general idea is to keep them short and to do them in this kind of format, the vertical format. You will not have failed to notice that the makeup of your feed has changed. You are not seeing so many first-degree connection posts, but mainly posts from people who are second-degree connections who have been, and their post has been liked by first-degree connections or commented on by them. And we are seeing a lot more of that in the feed. There, of course, other reasons for the change in the feed, lots of new people coming in and an increase in the popularity of events. I've noticed that in my invitations area, my network area of my profile, that I'm been getting a lot more invitations to events this year than I ever have in the past. And of course, just in the last couple of weeks, we've heard about the fact that people, individuals, you and I, will be able to pay to have our posts boosted. That'll be an interesting one. So the first of these was the feed content. In his report, Richard van der Blom said earlier in the year that now organic posts, so that's the posts that you and I are putting up, make up less than a third of the feed now. So more than 50% of the feed is made up of commercial content, a lot from LinkedIn themselves, promoted content, that's adverts from company pages at 34%, even a lot of LinkedIn ads, so that's LinkedIn Learning, that kind of thing. Collaborative articles have had quite a strong showing this year. Now, whether that is going to remain the case will be interesting. Now that the community top voice badges have gone, they disappeared off our profiles about 3 or 4 days ago, and hopefully won't be back. There was a lot of confusion between those and the real blue top voice badges. So if there is no badge as a reward for adding a comment to a collaborative article, then maybe people won't bother. Certainly won't be bothering from my end, that's for sure. And as I've already mentioned, we're seeing a lot more posts from our second degree connections. LinkedIn has benefited a lot, I think, from the exodus of other platforms. So people have left X in droves and have moved away to other platforms, probably like TikTok, potentially Blue Sky, Threads, and of course LinkedIn. And so that means that they are, as content creators, likely to be publishing frequently, therefore taking up space in the feed. And if we're seeing less than 30% of the feed as our own organic posts, that really does squeeze it, doesn't it? And so it tends to push smaller content creators like you and I out, which I feel is a shame, but that's the way it has to go, and we need to find ways to circumvent that, or at least to be able to mitigate it in some way. Events, as I've mentioned, have become more popular this year, and we've definitely seen more event posts on the back of that. And the reason for that is that every time there is an event, there are 3 posts, if you like. So when the event is first set up, it creates a post. On the day of the event, that same post shows back up in your feed again. And then once the event is over, that post is put into the event itself and remains there as part of it. You can see it separately, but it's also part of the event itself, which means it's there in perpetuity on your activity section, on your profile. Consequently, there has been an upswing in the number of impressions and the engagement on posts this year, simply because they are much more visible. And in his report, Richard said that event engagement was 12 times higher than video, and I suspect that he was referring there to LinkedIn Lives like this rather than audio events. Now, of course, we are in the process of seeing the fond farewell of audio events in their current on-platform format. They are moving to the LinkedIn Live format. They've already started to, and from the end of December, you will no longer see any audio events in the current audio format. Now, this has had a very mixed response from people. Big audio event creators have not been pleased by this move, understandably, particularly because, again, it makes the playing field even less even. After all, LinkedIn Lives are a much more difficult beast, and they need a third-party app, which you really need to pay for if you want to do them well. But I do think we will see still lots of events next year. I'm hoping so anyway. Just last week, we heard about this: paid posts from our personal profiles. Up until recently, this was only possible from company pages. Company pages could, in fact, boost a post from a personal profile of an employee. We haven't seen a lot of that, but it's been useful for thought leadership posts, and some of the larger organizations have been doing that, but now we can do it for ourselves. This is a situation where our own personal posts can become adverts, a bit like those boosted posts you already see in the feed from companies. We'll be able to do that for our own posts should we want to. Now, of course, that's going to have a potential impact on organic posts. It will no doubt squeeze them out even further, making the organic reach that we get on our posts even smaller, I suspect. Will we go in droves to the buying platform or the campaign platform of LinkedIn? I don't know. It will depend a lot on the cost, and we've always heard that the cost of advertising on LinkedIn has been high and results have been poor. But who knows, maybe this will make a change as more people decide to try it out at least and see whether it works, and then decide from there whether they will continue to do that. But again, it's one of those things that makes it more difficult for small content creators, and we have to decide whether we are going to continue to post at the same level that we are and still get poorer results, or whether we're going to change what we do. So now we've seen the changes that there've been on LinkedIn this year at that kind of macro level, and I won't bore you with the 200 odd changes that there've been at the micro level on LinkedIn, but we'll now turn our attention to the strategies that we might want to employ for 2025. Because as I said earlier on, we can't continue to do what we have been doing and still expect high levels of visibility. We need to change it up, think more carefully about our time, our resources, and what we are getting results on. So I think that we need to pay attention to these ideas that I'm going to talk about now, the new features that may make a difference, our engagement levels, how much we're commenting on other people's content, what we're doing in terms of content ourselves, how we're working with direct messaging, and the network building that we do. With close to 250 new features and changes to LinkedIn this year, it is very hard indeed to keep up. Now, we do this for our audience in a couple of ways. We put up a fortnightly new features document post, which, as I've already explained, because of the dwell time change, does not do nearly as well now as it did last year. Will we continue to do this in 2025? That is something I am giving good consideration to. After all, we also put all of these into our Linkability members community, and we talk about them in much more detail there than I do publicly. So if you'd like to see what the new features for 2024 have been to date, you're welcome to go to linkability.biz, have a look there. It's free for 7 days, and under each of our sections there, you'll find the new features that are relevant to that section. So there are changes to profiles, changes to posting, company pages, etc. So my suggestion is for next year that you keep up with what's new on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn often gives a bit of an algorithmic help to new features, particularly when it comes to posting. But I think we might also see it in other areas. For example, we've now got, or what's been rolled out is the new scrolling banners. So instead of just having one static image, we will be able to put up to 5 static images that will continuously scroll at the top of our profile. Again, this has been met with mixed response. I think it's great. I love the idea and I can't wait to get the feature myself. But I do think that there are some downsides to it. While it can be eye-catching and it will definitely grab attention, that constant scrolling of the banner, I think, might be a bit distracting for some. You can stop the banners from scrolling, but I think a lot of people are going to take some time to figure out how to do that. So let me just give you a little hint. It has to do with the little circles on the bottom right-hand side of the banner. If you click those, what will happen is the scroll will stop. These are scrolling every 3 seconds, so there's a lot of change. So up to 5 scrolling new banners is one thing that has been only talked about in the last 2 to 3 weeks. So if that's something that's relevant to you, like other new features that there've been this year, then I do recommend you keep up with the changes and implement them where they are ideal for you. If they are not, well, then I wouldn't worry about that too much. But I do think that it's important to note that a lot of new features like these scrolling banners are for premium members. And this is something we have seen a lot of in the last 24, 48 months, and that is LinkedIn moving to the pay to play model. In other words, if you want the features, you're going to have to pay for them. I now think that it's worth having premium for business because it gives you so many features on your LinkedIn profile that you wouldn't otherwise have access to, and that will make you stand out from the competition. Engagement is something that we should be doing. We probably are doing, but I'm willing to bet we don't do nearly enough of. So whereas you might be putting up 5 comments for every 1 post that you publish on LinkedIn, it now needs to be much, much higher than that. And in fact, I would consider reducing the number of times you post and putting that extra time into engagement instead. Now, why am I suggesting this? Well, partly because we're all time poor and we've only got a certain number of hours in our day to be able to be creating new content. So by adding comments to other people's posts, we will be able to use the time that we save by not creating posts more wisely, potentially, depending on whose posts we are commenting on. And how we do it is important as well. So we're not talking here about those kind of comments that say, great post, glad to see this, thanks for the share. I'm talking about posts that really add value, posts that pose a question, posts that share an opinion, or in other ways improve the discussion. You don't want to shut the discussion down. You want to make it more open to more people. And if you're commenting on other people's posts, then more people are going to see you, your name, your comments, and are likely to get involved in the discussion as well. But makes you more visible, whereby your organic reach might not be so great on your own posts when you comment on other people's posts, which are being seen, then that is really good for you because your name is going to pop up. People will see your photo and your headline, or at least part of it, and it's going to give you a lot more visibility, with the aim of people going to your profile, having a look at you, and then deciding to follow you or connect to you. I think too that it's important when you are posting and people are commenting on your post that you respond to them in a timely fashion. We all know that the algorithm responds to comments on posts and distributes the posts more widely, particularly when the comments are added relatively soon after posting. So if you can reply to those comments, that's going to boost the post even more, and it will be popped into more news feeds. And every time somebody comments on a post or adds a like, then it is more likely to pop up in the feed for your second degree connections, which helps you to extend your network. But the key to engagement, in my view, is adding value. There's no point in doing more comments if you don't take the time to add value. And yes, I know it takes time, but it's time well spent if your post, the post you're commenting on, is a good one. Now, content is one of those strategies that many of us have relied on for a very long time. And it's what made me fall in love with LinkedIn in the first place, when I suddenly realized that I could publish content that surprisingly other people would even read. And I started out by writing about writing, which was my area of expertise at the time. And that started to help me build an audience. And as I learned more about LinkedIn, I started writing about that too. And then my audience became even wider. But I am now seeing content in a different light. I will probably on average post 5 to 6 times a week. On the rare occasion, it might be 4 times a week. So consequently, that is a lot of my time. And I'm now thinking, well, is that better spent elsewhere? Am I better to rely less on publishing content and put more time into commenting on other people's posts, or more time in creating videos and potentially on creating content for my Linkability site members instead? So you can see that I am thinking really about next year and whether I want to put as much effort into my content creation as I have over the past 8 to 10 years. If it's not being seen by so many people, is it as valuable as it once was? And I tell you, I'm having a hard time justifying the amount of time I spend on it. So I'm thinking of doing other things instead. Now, that doesn't mean to say I'm going to abandon content altogether. Far from it. You can't get rid of me quite that easily. I will be hosting more live events, however, because I do think that there is value in that. Part of the reason is the content can be repurposed immediately. This event is over today, for example, it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. So repurposing content a lot more is something that I think that we can do and use it in different ways. So we put it onto YouTube, but it could equally go up onto our Linkability members site. It might go onto another social media platform as well. So there are plenty of ways that you can repurpose content from your LinkedIn Live events. And let me tell you right now, live events are our single most important content format in terms of engagement. And I've got the figures right here. I just worked them out yesterday. Our median for the last 9 months on our LinkedIn Lives has been an 8% engagement rate. Now, that's far higher than anything else that we do. And consequently, it's another reason why we want to do more live events next year. I also think it's important to try hard to, if you can, try hard to ignore the view numbers. I know that's not easy. Have we been brought up on social media to believe it's a holy grail of views and impressions? Well, I don't think it is, and I think there's more value. I'd say go to far as to say gold in fact, engagement. And so putting more time into your engagement and also into monitoring the engagement that you are getting on your own post is, I think, time well spent. You can see who's engaged on your post individually, and if it's a live event, you can see through the comments who's actually attended. So there's a lot of good metrics around engagement, and if you take a lot of note of that, I think you'll find that that's a good way to determine whether you are doing well with your content and whether it is hitting the mark or not. Another thing that we have done a lot more of this year is direct messaging. And this comes back to one of those things I talked about before in terms of providing value, and I was talking about engagement. We don't do the kind of direct messaging that is, hi, thanks for connecting with me. Would you like to join our membership site? That is not what we do. That's not who we are. That's not how we behave. What we do is we add value. We invite people to our events. We send them useful information, often a short YouTube video on something topical, and we make sure that people understand that we are not the pitch slap kind. People won't connect to us and find themselves suddenly being asked to shell out money for our services. We don't think that works. There's no evidence that it works, and it really, really annoys people. So it's bad for your reputation to be doing that. When you are direct messaging, you need to do it the right way. Another thing that we've found quite successful this year is switching up our formats. So as I've said, we do quite a lot more videos. We pop them into a direct message, and people seem to really like those because they show up as a video, and people can see right there and then. They don't have to go to another link for that, and they can then decide whether it's something that they want to watch or not, whether it's a topic that's of interest to them. And that has really been positive. We also send videos to relevant new connections when they first decide to reach out, or we reach out to them. And that seems to be well received as well. So you see what I mean when I said earlier that LinkedIn is becoming more and more about video. Of course, you can use a video, you can use text messaging, and don't forget voice notes. I love these because they are so easy to do. Just pick up your phone, type in the app, hit the microphone button, and away you go. You've got a minute to share your message, and it goes to the person instantly and shows up in their direct messaging as something that stands out with that long blue line. So I do like voice notes. I think they're simple and they're easy, and anybody can do those, and they're a nice personal touch. Being consistent with your messaging, if you are connecting to people, I think is very important. Don't just connect and then ghost someone. You want to be connecting and building a relationship with them. And doing that via direct messaging is a great way to do it. You know, if they have also double-clicked the bell on your profile, then they are very likely to see your posts show up in their notifications. And I think that that's very well worthwhile remembering that that's how people might find you and find your content in the notifications rather than in the feed. I know that that's where I go to find the content from the creators I want to hear from. So being consistent with your messaging to people, as I say, don't just connect and ghost. Make sure you send people messages on a regular basis. And guess what? We're coming up to Christmas or the end of the year, a perfect time to be dropping an end of year season's greetings and comment or a message to people you are connected with, and particularly people who've been very helpful to you during the year. So do keep in touch with people. That is where you will find the opportunities. Your network building is something that is crucial in my belief. If you want to be visible, you need to have a good sized network, but it's not the size that counts. Seriously, it is the quality of the people who are in your network. So if you're the kind of person that just connects with anybody and everybody, you are not going to build the kinds of relationships that in fact give value. You're not going to build the kind of relationships where people know you, like you, and trust you and want to do business with you. So my suggestion is that you pull back a bit from that particular strategy and that instead you focus more on inviting the people to connect with you that you really think are going to be good value for you in your network. The kind of people that you really think you want to get to know, that you can learn from yourself. I think this is where we need to be putting more attention and focusing on the many, many people out there who do want to have relationships with us and really do see value in connecting. But if you have found yourself connected to an awful lot of people who really don't, in fact, add value to your network, they are in a geographical location that is not of any use to you or you don't do business in, then there is probably little point in having them in your network. What you may find is they are holding your posts back from being seen by the right people. Now, don't go wholesale and unconnect with lots of people all at once. Someone we know this year got banned from LinkedIn for a few days because of that. LinkedIn doesn't like you opening an awful lot of profiles all at once. So if you do that, do it over a period of time. You don't want people in your network who aren't going to add value, but do be careful that you remove people in just an orderly fashion, I think I would suggest around that particular one. All right, so those are the changes that we've seen this year and some of the things that I think that we need to be thinking about for next year. We need to be thinking about our content strategy, how much we engage on other people's content, and how we direct message people. I think if we think things through and look at that from the perspective of our resources, what we hear on LinkedIn to do, that's our objectives and longer term goals, then we will come up with new ways, new strategies and new ideas that will help us overcome the problems that we've seen this year. Most notably, the drop in organic reach, the rise in AI, and the other factors that are really reducing how much people are seeing of us over time. So please feel free to go back over these slides again and have a look at them and just check to see whether there is anything there that you might want to do. I'm open to discussion about any of this, of course, at any time you'd like to direct message me and ask me questions or suggest some ideas that I might not have thought of, because I think the more people who are thinking about this and sharing ideas, the better. So that's it from me for today. Well, that's it from me in terms of a LinkedIn Live for the year. And thank you again to everybody who has joined us over the last 12 months, has supported our LinkedIn Lives, looked at our events later on, and generally been part of our Linkability family. We do absolutely so appreciate you and hope that you have a fabulous holiday season. I'll be lying in the sun reading books I didn't get a chance to catch up on during the year. And we have one more event this year. It is a LinkedIn audio event. It's on the new platform. Yes, we've moved to the LinkedIn Live platform for our audio events. And this time next week, that's where you will find us back here again with a LinkedIn Live audio event. I hope you'll join us for that. So, thank you again for joining us today. Thank you to my team, to Cher. I love you lots. Thank you to Gillian, love you too, and to Meryl for all your wonderful help over the year. Thank you again to you out there in the audience, and may you have a fabulous holiday season. Bye for now.